Hi, class. I'm sorry I can't be there today, but I wanted to give you something to get started on thinking about your introductions for your writing. For those of you who maybe have not yet started writing your introductions. And if you have, this will be a good check for yourself to look at what you already have. So, introduction paragraphs, the first paragraph of what you're writing about. We spent some time talking about these with your arguments you wrote earlier in the year, but particular to literary analysis, there are a few things that I want you to be thinking about including. So these are the needed elements that you want to be sure to include um, as part of your introduction. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they don't necessarily need to be in this order at all. You can play around with it to create an introduction that makes sense to you. It also might not be just one paragraph. If you need to divide it up into multiple paragraphs, that's okay. But the main things that we want to be sure to include are these. So I'm going to explain them to you, and then I'm going to have it stop and have you think about how you might apply this to your own writing. So the first thing that you're going to need to make sure that you do is you introduce your book. So you can't just start analyzing the book without introducing the reader to what the book was about in the first place. So imagine that you're writing this for an audience of people who have not yet read this book. So you need to introduce it to them. You need to provide a brief summary. You need to introduce the setting, the characters, the main conflict. You should include the author's name, the book title. And all of this doesn't need to go on for multiple paragraphs, just a few sentences, but you need to take the time to kind of give us an overview of the book so that the rest of what we'll read about makes sense. The next element, sorry. So what I want you to do now is I'm going to pause it here, and you are going to be prompted to think about in your own writing, write out an introduction to your book. So what would you include? If you wrote out a brief summary of your book, including your characters, your setting, your main conflict, go ahead and it's going to prompt you to stop, type in that element for your book now. Okay. So now we're ready to move on to the next thing that an introduction should include, which is introduce your topic. So you all have different topics, right? Some of you are writing about emotions. Some of you are writing about themes. Some of you are writing about characters. Some of you are doing outside research and tying that into a book. And that's okay. But whatever your big topic is that you're talking about, so if you're thinking about theme or if you're thinking about character, emotions, you need to, again, introduce this idea of what you're thinking about this topic to the reader. So if you're thinking about emotion, say, I'm in this paper, I am talking in particular about the topic of anger. And I'm thinking about how we use it and why we use it and the purpose that it serves. Or I'm thinking about love. Or I'm thinking about concentration camps. Or I'm thinking about symbolism. You get the idea, but you need to introduce us to kind of the big overarching idea that you're thinking about specific to your book and why you think this is a worthwhile thing to think about. So this is going to pause and it's going to prompt you. Go ahead and think about that now. What is the big topic that you're talking about? And what does your reader, what would you like your reader to know or understand about that topic relative to your book? And just jot down your thinking. Okay. Next, you need to include your connection to this topic. So this is where you insert yourself in. I know a lot of times when we're doing writing assignments, we were told to kind of remove ourselves from it. But the fact of the matter is that you're the one who's read this book. You're the ones who's making the claim that you're making. So you are included in it. So I want you to include your connection with this topic. Why did you choose to write about this? What's the story of how you came to read this book, how you came to choose this topic, etc. So you can think about why you connected with this character in particular, or why you chose to write about the emotion that you did, or why you chose to do the outside research that you did, or why you thought it was worthwhile to focus on the theme of this book. So again, it's going to pause you here and write out your thinking about this. How did you connect with this book or this topic? What is it that led you to be writing about this topic that you have chosen to write about? Okay, the next element you'll need is a hook. Now, obviously, this should go at the beginning. Um, so it's labeled as number 4 here, but it likely won't be number 4 when you actually write this out. But we spent some time again thinking about hooks when you wrote your arguments in the fall. And this should really just be kind of the same. Maybe you've selected a quotation from the book that you really liked and that you think really speaks to the point that you're trying to make. Maybe you have some sort of strong statement that you're going to make. You're really going to assert yourself and it, will grab the reader's attention. Maybe you want to tell a story. So just think about something that would be a good way to kind of grab the reader's attention and start on what you're doing. So I'll go ahead and pause. You pause it here and prompt you to type in what type of hook you're thinking about using. And you don't necessarily need to know the exact hook you want to use, but tell me what you think you would like to use. If you want to use a story or a quotation or a strong statement, or you have some other idea that you'd like to incorporate. And then the last part is for your claim. And you've written your claim. You and I have talked about your claim. This should be included in there. It's often the last sentence of your introduction, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So you can kind of play around with that and see where you think it would be the best fit. And you've already written your claim a couple of times, so I'm not going to have it prompt you to answer that now. So with all of this information in mind, you should be set up to put together a good introduction. And if you've already written an introduction, use this as a check for yourself to make sure you have included all of these components within it. I hope to be back tomorrow, and I'll look forward to seeing what you all have come up with then. Don't hesitate to send me an email if you need anything.